I have such an opportunity today to be in this conversation with Alexis, who is a prolific poet, a conjurer of magic words and pictures, a descendant of strong women and whales, celebrating an anniversary of partnership today. Welcome. Welcome to this dialogical sermon. And what I called it is a Black feminist conversation about how we can mother the world into peace. Doesn't that sound good?
I love that. Yes. yes.
Great. So tell us, introduce yourself to people who might not know you. What do you want us to know about you as we think about this conversation?
Sure. Well, I love everything that you said. I do identify as a descendant of strong women and whales. And I think of myself as a daughter on ancestral assignment, an ancestor, accountable, intellectual, and creative being. West Indian descent and Southern pride. I live in Durham, North Carolina, and it is the place that I've lived the longest, and I love my city. So those are things to know about me.
You teach at Duke?
I don't. I did do my Ph.D. at Duke, and I have taught there before, but I am the provost, I say, of a tiny Black feminist educational institution, Mobile Homecoming Trust, here in Durham.
I love that. I love it. I love it. Well, you and I are doing the digital thing that everyone does. You have beautiful cloth behind you.
I put it here just for this.
And I am sitting with my purple flowers.
We're matching.
In my pink and purple room. So I thought it works really great. As I think about this kind of feminist conversation and what it means to be Black women in America. And I wonder if you would, for the ones who are listening to the sermon, say what Black feminism is. What is it for you?
For me, Black feminism is a political legacy. It is a rigorous form of love. And for me, it is my spiritual practice, my primary central spiritual practice in this life. So Black feminism, what I call Black feminism, is the work that people who called themselves and still today call themselves Black feminists have done, which is to look at the world in a way that asks, what can make our world more livable, more loving? And the answers to those questions that they have found have everything to do with recognizing how interconnected we are, how interconnected the systems are that shape our lives, but also how our connections to each other across and through are actually what make the world and can make the world a more loving and livable place.
I love livable and loving place. And whenever I hear you talk about this connection, it makes me think about Ubuntu.
Yeah.
That kind of I see you, you see me, I am because you are kind of a philosophy. Does that resonate for you?
Absolutely. And well, in fact, I'm one of the founding members of a collective called Ubuntu, which we created as a collective response to a very high media profile sexual assault case that happened here in Durham. And the reason that we named the collective, which is a women of color-led, survivor-led collective, ending sexual violence and creating sustainable, transformative love, the reason that we wanted the name Ubuntu was because that is what we believe. We believe that it is our interdependence and our recognition that we're connected that actually can provide us the greatest healing, the greatest transformation and impact moving forward, even in situations like this particular very divisive, very fractious situation that we were responding to at that time, where it would be more it might seem more obvious to focus on our separations and to emphasize our separateness from those who've done harm, for example. We really understood that has not worked in our favor and will not and does not work in our favor in the long term. And so the vision for the world that we want, sustainable, transformative love, is that Ubuntu, the way that we are transformed by each other. And it is sustainable because it is ongoing and it is even beyond one lifetime.
And it's a species, and it's connected to the planet, the earth, the mother, right?
Yes, yes.
Too. You know, we talk a lot at Middle about revolutionary love, Alexis, and it is. I believe it is my feminist, womanist project to make love everywhere. I like to say. I love the double entendre of that.
Yes.
Like to think about the passion of, you know, of sexual love, and the deep friendship of like filial love, and the overflowingness of agape love as one kind of love energy with which, like to use a psychological term, if we could caffect the whole planet into our love orbit, what would it mean if it was actually that you complete me, that your well-being is my well-being, that your liberation is my liberation, that all of us are pulsing together as one being, and what we revolutionary would be that we fix it all together, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, absolutely. June Jordan says that we have to make love powerful. And my favorite of her essays, which is saying a lot because June Jordan is one of my favorite thinkers of all time, is a talk she gave in 1977 called The Creative Spirit. And the first sentence in there is, love is life force. And she goes on to just really, in complete agreement with everything you just said, talk about what would it be if we actually allowed that to, if we acted accordingly. Because it's not that it's not true. It is true. It's just that we've set up some structures that are not acknowledging and honoring that reality, which is the major conflict. But she specifically talks about it. She talks about what would that mean for the rivers of the world, the bees of the world? What would it mean in terms of peaceable relations between human beings, but beyond that? And yeah, her focus there is a strong, loving, intergenerational relationship. It's and it's what introduces for us. It's the theoretical framework that holds the anthology that I had the honor of co-editing with my awesome co-editors, Maya Williams and China Martins. We start by reprinting that essay, The Creative Spirit, which is actually, well, it's actually the first book that it's ever been published in, because she gave it as a public talk. Yeah, because it's just like, oh my goodness, it's almost as if that one sentence, love is life force. And so I just think it's so amazing that Middle, and this is why I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been so excited to get to meet you and to get to engage, because you have created an entire space around that philosophy of revolutionary love.
We have, and it is the most amazing thing and also the most difficult thing in the world. And I say that when I talk about creating multiracial, multi-everything spaces, I have it as my highest value. I grew up, I was in the Air Force, haha. My dad was in the Air Force, so
so you were too.
Didn't get to pick it. But we started our life in these like places where, I mean, we were often the only Black family, but also a place where I would say the ethic of love was legislated. Right? Like I got called the N-word when I was in kindergarten. And I came home and told about it, and my dad went to the base commander about it, and there was an action that happened. I think that might have been the beginning of my activism.
Yeah.
But, you know, where there was not necessarily fondness, there was a mandated respect code. And later on in life, my dad, my brother, both military people, you find yourself creating family in those military spaces, because you do have to rely on each other, right? You do have to count on each other. And there's both the rigor of expectation of respect, and then there's the need to make family. I'm saying that to say I have a really high value around that, around spaces that are many-gendered, that are many-sexual orientations, that are multiracial, multi-ethnic. It is right, and it is hard. And it is right, and it is hard. And middle is the most beautiful experiment of this. The space where, everything is everything, and love is love is love.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for you to come see us sometime in the real
I
world.
can't wait either. Yeah, I'm very excited for that to happen.
But I talk about the hard to say something about this, Alexis. Like, what is it? You know, why do we create systems and structures that go against our nature? I feel like in your writing, you're saying it is actually natural for us to be interdependent and actually natural for us to be loving. What's with the systems and structures that are so against our nature?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder that every day. I'm like, why? Because it takes so much. It takes so much work to impose this other story. I mean, I have been thinking about that in this moment where, I felt like I have seen, and I continue to see, so many acts of love, so many acts of care that are incredibly inspiring, and so many people who are really honoring their impulse to be amazing neighbors,
Right.
to care for other people. And it has been interesting to see what it takes to impose a divisive narrative on top of something that impacts everyone. I feel like there was a moment where I was like, oh my goodness, I was seeing people even just finding the same jokes all funny about being stuck in the house and, all of these different things. And then it was like right after that, there was a lot of funding for people to demonstrate around a very divisive political response or non-response to COVID-19. So I see examples of that over and over again. Like you can see it, like, oh, it takes a lot of work. And why? What is that? What is the fear that is there? I mean, I think that there are levels of fear, and my thought is that there's even that fear is connected to the same truth of how profoundly we want and need to be connected and loved. And fear that we cannot, and know deep inside that we cannot live without that connection, without that, without the reality of our interdependence. And so I do think that there is, I think that, I was just reading Audre Lorde's 1989 commencement address for Oberlin College, which was on my heart this morning. And she was talking about a very small amount of people who must be so afraid, who are like interested in amassing an amount of wealth that no individual can spend or even, move or do things with, that they feel the type of fear that they feel that they need to do that. And then there's a story that taps into a larger set of people's fear, because it would never work without a large set of people tapping into that fear, that if we can't individually control our access to love, which we can't, because it's not an individual unit of exchange, like that's not what love is, then we will somehow end up bereft of it. Like that's a story, and it's a story that's repeated
over and over again. I two things. One, the Audre Lorde, I was thinking this morning about after which hurricane?
Oh, Hurricane Hugo in 88. Yeah.
I wish they lived down the road, or
yes,
kind of inviting people to like, what if we all lived down the road and we all were the ones who were surviving on these plantains, and we were all the ones making it, making our heads back together, like all of us together were surviving. This guy, I think his name is Diogenes Allen. I try to attribute this to him, and then I look it up and it says I said it. So I'm going to say he said it, just to be a fair scholar. But this idea that love is the unconditional regard for the unique particularity of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Love is the unconditional regard for the unique particularity of the other. And that we're like wired for that. Like we want that. We delight in that. That's juicy for us. That's joyful for us to really enjoy each other's otherness, right? But at the same time, the embedded fear, the psychodynamic fear is love will make me have two wounds. I will either be abandoned,
right,
or I will be absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
Abandoned or absorbed. I will cease to exist either way, right? And so is that part of our primal fear that we will get what we want, which is to be loved up, and that if we're loved up, we won't exist anymore as an independent agent? Is that, what do you think about that?
I think so. I mean, I think that then the other question is, where does the independent agent thing come from? You know, like I think that's true. And it's like, why do I, let me just put it to myself. Like, why do I continue to want to exist as an independent agent or as an individual? And it's because I do. I'm not saying like, oh, other people who think that are the misguided, and I just, vibrate as part of the collective love vibration that you mentioned earlier. I feel like I do in the best moments. And there is still something that's like, oh, what am I protecting? What am I protecting in the sense of an idea of who I am, or an idea of who I was? And
or an idea of who I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
What does success look like? What does success look like? What does winning look like? What does surviving look like? I don't know that we can go back far enough to find out who when they walked out of the cave, Alexis, like who walked out of the cave and went, wow, there's stuff out here we could do together. And somebody like, yep. But then somebody went, but I want that big one. I want the big one. I want the big piece of meat, or I want the big totem, or whatever it was. Because I decided that size matters, or I decided that fierce matters. And how do we undo that? I feel like our ancestors many of our ancestors had another story.
Yes, most of our ancestors. I think that Sylvia Wynter is a person who theorizes how it's much more recent than the cave, and that it's specific. Like she talks about what in the moment before colonialism,
mm-hmm.
She's an intellectual historian, and she does credible history of science, and she's like, what is it? And it actually is a theological break.
Yes.
The way that she describes it is that there is a moment where a particular set of folks who are in conversation with each other, and now they call it the Enlightenment, but we're like, we don't know how enlightened it is, are creating this idea of the human, or this idea of man as separate from God. And she says Homo economicus, right? So that the economic reality becomes the new religion, becomes the new theology through which this unit exists and must be continually reproduced. And then that set of folks out of that philosophy, colonizing the rest of the world and imposing that, right? There's a beautiful moment where Sylvia Wynter was at a conference about the future of African development, economic development, right? And she's like, this is not necessarily a good idea. It's not necessarily a good idea to adopt this particular relationship to environment, which is an extractive relationship to environment.
Right.
If we all develop that same economy, we won't be able to be here on this planet. This planet will not be able to tolerate us. And she was saying that in the 1970s, and she is still saying it today, where she is continuing to create theory right now.
There's something really powerful, and something's being built in your world. Something being built.
There is some construction somewhere.
No, whatever you're building, I hope
Can
it's
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you beautifully. I just wanted to say out loud for the sermon hearers.
Yes, that's what's happening. I don't know exactly.
It's so good.
I don't know what's being built, but something is being built.
What I really love about the work, I'm discovering more of your work, Alexis, all the time, but I feel like one of the ways that you are modeling in your scholarship, in your work, in your poetry, the thing you say is important is the way you interact with work that's gone before you. You know, the Homo erectus. Oh, did I say that? The Homo erectus. We're going to cut that out. Now, that other thing, economicus, right? This idea that we are, like, I am by myself. The way I become, like, known is I have these individual thoughts and I write them down and someone quotes me, but you're so in dialogue with other writers, people's work that you really found important, and then you focus on that work as part of your conversation. Can you say, so what it made me think about was, you know, the scripture that got read today as we do the sermon is something about the stones that the stone that the builder rejected, the stone that the builders rejected has become this cornerstone. And I thought, you're a builder. So the hammer made me think, I'm pulling this together. You're a builder. You're not so much an over-againster as you are a synthesizer and a dialogue partner and a builder upon these beautiful things that have happened in the world. Is that right?
I love that. I had never have articulated it like that, but I appreciate the metaphor of someone actually doing something with a stone, I don't know, that's happening nearby that we can hear. For me, that is part of this idea of what you say of mothering the world into peace. I feel like that is a truth. You know, I know, and in my studies of literary history, I've seen that, like, oh, there's something that's, like, I would say patricidal, you know, that people say, okay, this is how I establish myself as a brilliant new voice, is I have to say that what came before me was wrong in this way, this way, this way, this way.
Right.
And, you know, of course, there are different things and different perspectives across generations. And the people who have influenced me, it's not to say that I would agree with everything or they would agree with everything that I would say.
Right.
But it is the case, I think it's always the case, you know, that even to be able to say anything, it does come out of what has been said before.
Yes.
We are influenced by everything that we've read and heard, and, you know, we can't always represent all of that. But part of what my commitment has been is to say, well, what's another way of being in relationship that's not my intimacy, is that I can destroy what came before me because I know it so well that I can see everything that shouldn't be the way it is, or that, you know, that I think is wrong with it. But to say, this is something that has transformed me. Yes. And what if I lean into that? Like, how much more will it even transform me?
Right.
Which has been the practice of, like, if I'm engaging it every single day and I'm allowing it to take me where it takes me. And,
that's so
and I just think I'm hoping that it's just one way. And I think there are many ways to honor the reality. It is the reality of our interdependence and of our intellectual symbiosis that, it's love, you know, it's a form of daughtering. For me, it is a form of daughtering.
Daughtering. Oh, that's great.
And it's a visionary daughtering, you know, like, obviously there's a daughtering, or the category daughter has a patriarchal function in a certain type of way. But I also think that there is, just like there can be revolutionary mothering, I feel that there can be a visionary daughtering that says, I get to decide how to be in relationship, and I can be accountable as a daughter in ways that are life-giving, in ways that are honoring, sometimes in ways that even advocate for my foremothers in ways that they may not have had the space to advocate for themselves, or wouldn't even think to advocate for themselves because they're busy making it possible for us to even be here. So yeah, I think that there's just a recognition and love that I want to place at the center, and a form of relationship. You know, like I was thinking about what it is, and I've seen it happen. You know, I've seen it happen with some of the elders who, you know, there's ancestors who I quote and who are so important and central to our work, and this is why we reprint the June Jordan and, you know, all of this. But those living elders who get to know that they are eternal, you know, like that they will live forever. And it's not because my books are going to be in print forever necessarily, but because their impact, they can recognize that their impact has been so deep that it's beyond.
Right.
It's beyond citation.
It's beyond footnote, right?
It exists as people's lives, right? Audre Lorde says you testify to it with your life. And you know, there's no way then that all those lives that they've touched, because our lives are interdependent, then the lives that they've touched, our lives are transforming other lives. You know, like it lives in this way that is so far beyond the ego and so far beyond the units of academic novelty that exist. It's something much deeper than that. And I feel like what, especially the Black feminist writers and Black women writers who I have read, they have done more than let me have access to smart ideas, though they have done that. Yeah. They have given me something deeper, like my love and life itself. And
they've birthed us.
Yes. And so they deserve more than just like, yay, that was smart, though it was.
Yes.
You know, like they what they did as they did it was part of eternal life. So they should be acknowledged in their eternal life now while they're living, and for those who have already passed on, forever. And beyond the words, but because I do work with words, there's almost a performance of it. You know, like as you mentioned, I have this book here with a
here called Dub. Show that again.
Called Dub, and it's
the third one, right?
Yeah, it's a third and a triptych, and it's inspired by Sylvia Wynter especially, and it cites her on every single page, every single paragraph. It's Sylvia Wynter, something she emphasized, something she wrote in or gave in one of her speeches, and it's still not actually what I'm talking about, but it's a representation to say that, you know, there's just so many that if all I did for the rest of the years that I have, all I used this body for was to just say thank you, and then say thank you and thank you and thank you.
Yeah.
That still wouldn't be it.
Yeah. Oh.
But I can at least honor that there's that infinitude of grace, love, and gratitude made possible by what these people have testified to with their lives.
So to take us just a bit to revolutionary mothering in this moment in time, I'm not the big Mother's Day woman. My mama's dead 3 years, bless her, I love her. I didn't get to have babies. My eggs were too old. So I'm not like, Mother's Day is the thing, but I love this idea of mothering. I am a mother, and the earth mothers me, and the writers that have gone before us mother me, and you know, Alice Walker and Toni Morrison and Katie Cannon as a theologian, and Dolores Williams, and like, you know, you just want to say their names.
Yes.
What, Alexis, what can Black feminists teach this nation about mothering the world to peace?
I love that question so much.
Get it out.
It's interesting because there's this moment and I'm like, oof, because as soon as you say, what can Black feminists teach? You know, of course I'm like, everything, right? And then I also feel that sometimes the way my Black feminism emerges and identifies itself and the need for it within me is how many times I'm like, we already told you, you know what I'm saying? So like there's, and I remember I had a conversation with the incredible Barbara Smith, another one of these folks who absolutely made Black feminism accessible to me, and was a person who dedicated and continues to dedicate her life to it actually being intergenerational. She was like, these books will stay in print, not because they're profitable, but because there's some people who are going to come who are going to need these. And I was one of those people. And she said, I think it was like 2016 election. She was saying like, if people had listened to Black feminists, you know, like, we wouldn't be in this situation. And there's so many situations that applies to where it's like, oh, wow. It has been said. So, so I'll say that was there for me, and I wanted to express it so that I can also really generatively respond to this question that I get to be asked, which is a huge honor. So I feel that Black feminists can teach the world, and do teach the world, you know, like through our existence, through our ethics of interdependence, through the ways that we care for each other, and the ways that we do not draw borders where we could, but continue to create community, continue even to say the same thing over and over again. For 100 years, that is, you know, thinking about like, I think about it, you know, like, and I feel grateful for the intergenerational legacy. I feel grateful for, you know, my sister Brittany Cooper being on the news, and I look at her and I see Ida B. Wells, you know what I'm saying? Like I see the through line, and I'm so grateful that there is a through line. And I also see that we're still having to show up and say things that Ida B. Wells did say super eloquently. So yeah, I think that there's a yes. I think that there's a profound yes that is my experience of Black feminism. And I'm actually realizing, as you mentioned, this is our anniversary, and one of our anniversaries in our partnership. And one of the first gifts that my partner Jean Godare ever gave me was a piece of art that they made, and it said Black feminism and yes, because those are my favorite words, Black feminism and yes. And so they made this beautiful piece of art so I could just see that reflected all the time. And that's what I see. There's a yes. And I think that it's the yes to that impulse within us that says we can be more loving, that says there's enough for us all to be well.
Exactly.
You know, that there's a yes to that, because that impulse is there. That desire to embrace and be embraced is there. And I do think we've been taught that it is dangerous, whatever the word is, inefficient, not possible, silly to say yes to that. And so there's a lot of different versions of no that these systems, you know, as you asked about it earlier, these systems are all versions of no. They're no to life. They're no to love as life force.
The life force. Yeah. No to life force.
Like, exactly.
Like,
and so
enough, right? Like love isn't enough. But
that's what it says. That's the story, right? That's the story. And love is enough. And so I think that if I was if I was listening to this and I was thinking, how can I learn from Black feminism? Like, how can I allow Black feminism to mother me into a yes? I feel like that's what I'm testifying to with my life, is I'm allowing Black feminism to mother me into a yes. I would say look at it. Look at what Black feminists say yes to. Just look. You know, you can look at Black feminists who are alive right now and say, what do they say yes to? There are a lot of things Black feminists have to say no to.
That's right. But
and
say yes to.
in order to protect that deeper yes, right? And I think that there's a loving rage. Like when I think about this daughtering, I think about Kikuya Shakur and how Asada Shakur describes Kikuya Shakur, her daughter,
yes.
4-year-old daughter, young daughter, who refused to accept that her mother was in prison. She refused. She had tantrums. She screamed. She said, "You are not my mother." She would refuse to embrace her and hug her. She said, "No, no, no. You could leave here if you wanted to." And, you know, this is a toddler, not somebody who is aware of the systemic intersections that cause her mother to be a political prisoner yet.
Right.
But Asada Shakur believed her. She said, I don't want to teach her that this prison is more true than what she knows, which is that we belong together. And it took a whole bunch of people, and people are still in jail for this, right, to actually make it true what Kikuya said. But they did. Yeah. And Asada is free, and they got to be together in Cuba. And that is, for me, that is one of the miracles of daughtering, is that there is a no to prison that is in honor of the yes, that we deserve to be each other, that our love is more important than this structure, the prison. And I just wonder about that. I think looking at what Black feminists say yes to, and then I think that this is what I feel Audre Lorde was encouraging people to do this all the time, even people who called into radio shows she was on with like really not friendly questions. She was asking them to look to their own deeper yes. And I'm wondering, you know, everybody who's watching this, what is that yes? Like, what is that profound yes? And if what you're present to is a no, that is fine, because under it, there's a yes. You know, the reason that underneath it is a yes. The reason that we say no to prison, those of us who are abolitionists, the reason that we say no to, you know, we recently learned about another vigilante murder of a Black man
running,
just living his life. The reason we say no to that, there's a love underneath that, because we know that we deserve to be free. We know that life is sacred and that we deserve to be able to live in our freedom. So that's a yes. And what would it mean to honor that yes? Harriet Tubman said, "My people are free." And I love it. She said it in the present tense and asked herself, what would she do to act accordingly? Yeah. What are the decisions and actions? And we know the decisions and actions that she did take were incredible, and things that other people said were impossible, in order to live in alignment with what she knew to be true, which is that we're free. So yes. Yes.
Alexis, thank you for you in the world. Thank you for your spirit. Thank you for your life. Thank you for your yes. Thank you for the connections you make across and beyond and below and around to all creatures and all the work. Your body of literature and your revolutionary mothering and all the projects. Thank you for you.